No cartels, right? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Brajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Jaya Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parividacharya Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gora Premanandi. Okay. So that our hosts and hostess can be up to speed with what we've been doing since the Purnima on Sunday the 1st begins the month of Kartik. I learned something that I didn't know before. how does the name Kartik get derived? What's its etymology? Very simple. The full moon closest to the Kritika nakshatra during this month becomes the Kartik month. Kartika or Kartik. It gets shortened by a number of letters in English, but that's the month. And this is an auspicious month. We find out from Krishna's pastimes that during his time, the month of Kartik was also celebrated, not because of the Damodara Lila, but it's an auspicious month. So in ISKCON, we commonly, all of our centers and in homes, we, for the whole month, sing a series of songs, Ashtaka, 8 songs, composed long, long ago by Satyavrata Muni, glorifying this pastime. Sing it in Sanskrit and offer a lamp and honor Lord Damodar. So since that Sunday, we began this chapter 9 of Canto 10, which is outlining the pastime, spoken by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. And it, a little background, it's a carryover from chapter 8, the previous chapter, where the childhood pastimes of Krishna are outlined, from babyhood, learning to crawl, and the emphasis goes to the parental affection, Krishna's activities that was nourishing the Vatsalya, the parental affection of the elders, especially his mother. And one of the features that we find in chapter 8 is Krishna wanted the affection of his mother to be scolded or chastised lovingly. And he tried twice and it didn't happen, so he got better at it. He was stealing butter, the Makkanchor pastimes, and that's elaborately discussed. And how the elder ladies, friends of Yashoda, responded lovingly, how their husbands responded, and Krishna responded to them lovingly. But he continued to steal butter and other dairy products from their storerooms. And what Mother Yasoda did, she heard all these things and she just embraced him and said, Gopal, why do you do these things? So he wasn't satisfied. So he did something that would get chastisement. He ate dirt. But she didn't chastise him. She wanted to look inside his mouth, and she looked inside his mouth and she saw no dirt. She saw the whole universe. And so how did she respond? She became filled with different ecstasies, this one, that one, the other one, and finally settled on whatever he is, he's my son, I have to feed him, and she began feeding him. So this chapter 9 begins, according to Sanatana Goswami, saying Krishna wasn't satisfied. He really wanted that particular kind of affection, and so he did what he did. The Damodara Lila was from Krishna's side for that purpose. And so we're at the stage where Mother Yasoda, she went to rescue the milk that was on the stove. It's many things that happened leading up to this. And Krishna was angry because he wanted her to continue feeding him, and she left to take care of the milk on the stove. It was boiling over. And so he broke the yogurt pot, that was used for churning butter. And he left, went to the storeroom, and started eating the freshly churned butter from yesterday. And then he took one of the butter pots from the storeroom, went into the courtyard towards the main gate, and was sitting on an upside-down wooden mortar, eating and feeding the monkeys. So Mother Jasoda came back after rescuing the milk, saw what she saw. She understood this must be Krishna. And so she wanted to find him. So she followed his little footprints, because they had yogurt around his footprints. And she found this path leading to the storeroom. She looked outside the door and saw Krishna sitting on the grinding mortar. So on her tiptoes, she snuck up behind him so he wouldn't detect. He saw her anyways, and looking very fearful, looking here, looking there, he ran. And he who cannot be caught by yogis was caught by Mother Jasoda. There's lots of verses describing that miracle. And he was afraid, wasn't just play acting, but he was feeling a transcendental emotion of fear. Oh, Mother Jasoda may chastise me. But he wanted her to chastise him. So she may chastise me. He wanted that feeling, and so he was feeling that feeling. And she had a lati, a little thin stick in her hand, and was shaking it. And she saw him cry and rubbing his eyes. The cudgel was gliding down his cheeks, rubbing, and so she threw the stick away. She didn't want to see him cry. And then she decided, now he's so much afraid he may run away and go into the forest. There's wild animals in the forest, so I have to prevent him from doing that. So she wanted to bind him with a soft rope and make sure he didn't run away and get in some further danger. So that's where we are. It's text 13:14 of chapter 9. Here's the translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no beginning and no end, no exterior and no interior, no front and no rear. In other words, he is all-pervading. Because he is not under the influence of the element of time, for him there is no difference between past, present, and future. He exists in his own transcendental form at all times. Being absolute, beyond relativity, he is free from the distinctions between cause and effect, although he is the cause and effect of everything. That unmanifested person, who is beyond the perception of the senses, has now appeared. He's unmanifested, but he has now appeared. As a human child, and Mother Yashoda, considering him her own ordinary child, bound him to the wooden mortar with a rope. She hasn't bound him yet, but she's going to. But there's this verse, these two verses, 4 one-hour classes have already been held where the commentaries are illuminating this verse, because it's important to understand the transcendental nature of Krishna's activity and his form and his qualities. According to Bhagavad Gita, the famous verse, Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tattvataha chakva deham punar janma naiti mamiti sorjana. Just by understanding the tattva, in truth, the nature of Krishna's appearance and activities, it breaks the bond of birth and death, and one goes to Krishna. So it's important. Therefore, there's lots of commentary. And this section of the ninth chapter is referred to in a number of places because of its importance. One of them comes from Krishna appearing in the prison house of Kamsa, chapter 3, Canto 10, chapter 3. Vasudeva offers his prayers, Devaki offers her prayers, Krishna responds with the following verse. Krishna says, and it's addressing the transcendental nature of Krishna's form, which Mother Jasoda was trying to bind with something material. You can't. Something material can't go around something spiritual. You can't. But she did it. So Krishna says, I have shown you this form so that you will remember my previous appearances before you. You would not understand my birth if I appeared in my human-like form. In other words, elaborated, Krishna explains that in long ago in Satya Yuga, you were Suttapa and Prishni, and you underwent long austerities for the purpose of having a son like me. And I appeared before you in this very same form. You pleased me very much by your austerities, your desire to have me as your son. I will appear not just this lifetime, but in 3 consecutive lifetimes. I will come as your son. So Suttapa and Prishni had as their son Prishni Garbha, Satya Yuga. And then the following Yuga, as the son of Kashyapa and Aditi, he appeared as Vamana. And then in Dwarapa Yuga, he appeared as Vasudeva Krishna. So he's saying, if I appeared as like a little baby, you wouldn't understand who I am. So I'm appearing in this form so you know I'm not just your little baby. I'm fulfilling my promise to you. Your desire is being fulfilled because of your pure devotion. Here I am as your son. And this is making reference to these verses from chapter 9. The commentary by Jiva Goswami, it reads, Bhava means that in which something exists, or, in other words, an object. There would be no discernment or jnanam of me as the object of your previous worship. Bhava can mean the form with 4 arms that he had shown, so that they would remember the Lord's 3 appearances to fulfill the boon. He made a promise, and I'm fulfilling my promise. This indicates that this form is not the principal form. My principal form is Swayam Bhagavan, Parabrahman, with human form, because he's with a 4-arm form. My birth, Bhava, would not be recognized by another method, at yantaha, by appearing with human characteristics in 2 arms as the secret Parabrahman in human form. Though this is my chief form, with either 2 or 4 arms, I did not show it first. That this is the chief form is shown in the following verses. The following verse, there's several. The first is from Brahma Vimohan Lila. Brahma, the firstborn living being, visits Vrindavan. He sees Krishna perform a pastime. The pastime of killing of the Aghasura demon. He goes, wow. Krishna is very powerful. I wonder what's the limit. He just became inquisitive. So he decided he would match his mystic power and see what Krishna would do to supersede his mystic power. So what Krishna did was he arranged by his Yogamaya potency that the calves started drifting away, taking fresh grass. Brahma came and kidnapped them, put them in a cave. The boys looked around and said, "Where'd the calves go?" And Krishna said, "Don't worry, I'll find them. You finish lunch." So when Krishna was looking for the calves, he's omniscient. He didn't have to look for anything but pastime, looking for the calves. And Brahma came along and stole the cowherd boys. So Krishna came back and, wait a minute, where's the calves? Where's the cowherd boys? Then he understood. He was enjoying a pastime. He understood what Brahma did. So Brahma came back to see what's Krishna going to do. And when he came back, he saw all the calves and cowherd boys. And he was bewildered. So he went back to the cave. They're in the cave. And then he went back and they're having lunch with Krishna. And then Krishna showed each one of the calves and each one of the cowherd boys, simultaneously showing each one of them as a Narayan form, surrounded by all the potencies that names, there's so many potencies, unlimited potencies, personified Vedas, a cacophony of sound of their offering prayers to Krishna. He was overwhelmed. And then all of a sudden, poof, they all disappeared. It was just Krishna holding a lump of yogurt and fruit in his hand, smiling. And Brahma offered obeisances many times, and then he offered prayers. So this is from the prayer section after that experience. Have you not shown me today that both you, yourself, and everything within this creation are manifestations of your inconceivable potency? First you appeared alone, then you manifested yourself as all of the Vrindavan calves and cowherd boys, your friends. Next you appeared as an equal number of 400 Vishnu forms who are worshipped by all living beings, including me. And after that you appeared as an equal number of complete universes. Finally, you have now returned to your unlimited original form of the Supreme Absolute Truth, one without a second. In this chapter 9, these very verses, Shukadev Goswami says, the Supreme Lord has no beginning and no end, no exterior and no interior, no front and no rear. In other words, he is all-pervading. Because he is not under the influence of the element of time, for him there is no difference between past, present, and future. He exists in his own transcendental form at all times. Sometimes not manifest, sometimes manifest, and then sometimes not manifest. All according to his will. Those forms, even in their not manifest stage, they're eternal forms. Just not visible to us because he has withdrawn the potency to see them. In chapter 44 of Canto 10, this is in relation to Uddhava's visit to Vrindavan after Krishna went and killed Kamsa. Krishna wanted to fulfill his promise to Nanda that he would come back. But he was concerned, Krishna was concerned, that if I go back, then the remaining demons, they'll know of my affection for the Brijvasis, and so they'll harass them, and so I'll send Uddhava instead. So he sent Uddhava. And Shukadev Goswami explains, what austerities must the gopis have performed? So when Uddhava went back, the first place he visited was Nanda and Jasoda. And that exchange is described. And he's amazed at the kind of love they have for Krishna. He's never experienced anything like that. the love of the residents of Vrindavan is super special. But the message was he's carrying a letter from Krishna for the gopis, and he's engaging with the gopis. He's even more amazed. So that's where this comes. What austerities the gopis have performed. With their eyes, they always drink the nectar of Krishna's form, which is the essence of loveliness, and is not to be equaled or surpassed. That loveliness, this is Krishna, is the only abode of beauty, fame, and opulence. It is self-perfect, ever fresh, and extremely rare. Then speaking this is Uddhava speaking, Canto 3, Chapter 2. Uddhava is met by Vidura. Vidura is on pilgrimage after leaving, before the Kurukshetra battle, he leaves Hastinapur. You familiar? Yes? He was insulted by Duryodhana and he left. He went on pilgrimage. In the course of his pilgrimage, he met Vidura. He met Uddhava. And so when he sees Uddhava, he starts asking about Krishna. And Uddhava, Uddhava became so absorbed in thought of Krishna that he entered samadhi and lost external consciousness. According to the commentary, he went to Krishna. But there's his elder he wants to respect, Vidura's elder. So he struggled to bring himself back to external consciousness to respond to Vidura's question, how is Krishna? And Vidura says, Krishna possesses that form suitable for human pastimes to show the full capacity of Yogamaya. That form astonishes even the Lord of Vaikuntha. It is the pinnacle of auspicious qualities and enhances the beauty of his ornaments. Usually it's the other way around. Ornaments are to enhance somebody's beauty, but Krishna's beauty enhances the beauty of the ornaments. The BBT translation is the same verse, is slightly different. It reads, the Lord appeared in the mortal world by his internal potency, Yogamaya. He came in his eternal form, which is just suitable for his pastimes. These pastimes were wonderful for everyone, even for those proud of their opulence, including the Lord himself in his form as the Lord of Vaikuntha. Thus, he, or Sri Krishna's transcendental body, is the ornament of all ornaments. Here's another reference from this same chapter, from chapter 13. Chapter 13 is the chapter where the Aghasura demon is killed. And after the Aghasura demon is killed, the cowherd boys go to have lunch. Brahma steals the calves and cowherd boys, comes back and sees what he sees. So he's now expressing what he is seeing, or Sukadeva Goswami is expressing what Brahma saw. And the translation reads, the forms all had eternal, unlimited forms, full of knowledge and bliss, which were all one form. Their great glory could not even be touched by the Atma Jnanis. Those who have knowledge, Atma Tattva, could not understand the Bhagavan feature. Knowing Aham Brahmasmi is not sufficient to know the Bhagavan feature. And commentary, again, this is Jiva Goswami. Though there were many Vishnu forms with great variety, they were all one by being the form of the Supreme Brahman, Para Brahman. The forms are eternal, satya. And the only forms are eka rasa, because they did not have the influence of time, since they were the cause and shelter of everything. So some of the same points as mentioned in this morning's verse, but just expressed in a different context. Those forms, that's what Brahma saw, were full of knowledge, since they were non-material, full of consciousness, being self-revealing. It was already said that while Brahma watched, those forms spontaneously manifested themselves. There was no form, and then there was forms. And then there was forms of cowherd boys and calves, and then there were forms of Narayan. And just being manifested like poof. By the Lord's potency, they were manifest and then withdrawn. From the Katha Upanishad, the Chakshusha Pashyati Rupam Asya. The Lord's form cannot be seen by the material eye. We were hearing the other day, one can see his form only if the Lord gives the Shakti to see, even to the yogis who are searching for him within their heart. This is another verse from Katha Upanishad. Yam evaisha vrinute tena labhyas tasyaisha atma vrinute tanum svam. The Lord is attained by the person whom he chooses and reveals his form to him. Svetashvatara Upanishad says, Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. The Lord is like the sun, beyond darkness. Narayana Dhyatma says, Nitya Vyaktopi Bhagavan Ishate Nija Shaktitaha. The Lord, though eternally manifest, can be seen only by means of his own Shakti. Very similar to a reference we read yesterday. Those are scriptural references. The commentary reads, these forms were unlimited, even though they appeared to be limited. These forms were unlimited, even though they appeared to be limited, because of their inconceivable energy. There's a theme through all of these commentaries, and the apparent contradictions that exist within the absolute truth are not contradictory because the absolute truth has inconceivable potencies. And sometimes it appears like this, and sometimes it appears not like this. Sometimes it appears like that, sometimes it appears not like that, and it's all possible because of the inconceivable potencies being manifested or withdrawn. And it's not contradictory, because he's the resting place of everything. The source of everything has everything, as this and that, and this and not this, and that and not this, not that. Everything by the inconceivable, achintya shakti, inconceivable potencies. Here's Chandogya Upanishad. The Lord is the size of the distance between the thumb and forefinger. He has no, how can you measure? Immeasurable, aprameya, but that's his size. That's the size, indicating that's the size of a Paramatma within the heart, approximately. Chandogya Upanishad. Na Chantair na bahir yasya. That's this verse, 10.9.13. He has no inside or outside. these forms were complete bliss because their forms in all parts were composed of the highest prema without restriction. This was already said by Brahma, or by Shukadeva, about what Brahma saw. What is this irrational phenomena? The affection of all the inhabitants of Braja, including me, for Krishna, the soul and shelter of all of us, increasing as never before, is now increasing for these boys and calves. He's unlimited. And then the unlimited can expand to more unlimited. And it's not a problem. It's not a contradiction. The Shruti says, this is Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad, Anandam Brahmano Rupam. The form of Brahman is bliss, Ananda. Back to prayers to by Devaki to Krishna in the prison house. I know you directly as the Supreme Person beyond material existence, as the impersonal Brahman, as Paramatma and Bhagavan, full of bliss. Although the Lord has many forms, they're also one. Shruti says, long Sanskrit, the Lord is complete bliss, without old age, the oldest, and a single being, though seen in many forms. Contradictions apparent. According to the Lord's desire, he appears in a particular form, although he has simultaneous unlimited forms and qualities. The forms of the boys and calves were not incidental. That is, the cowherd boys and calves, they're eternal associates of Krishna. They appeared in spiritual forms. When they were kidnapped, they were put in a cave and sealed off. So Krishna manifested forms identical to those calves and identical to the cowherd boys. So much so, we'll hear in the next chapter, chapter 15, we'll hear that even their mothers didn't recognize that this isn't my son. What mother isn't going to recognize who their son or daughter is? Even if it's like close. But everything, the voice inflection and mannerisms and everything, that's just not just physical appearance. He made replicas of them. And for him, that's not a problem. And those very same boys were him. And the mothers were feeling surprised that before they had more affection for Krishna than for even their own son, and now they have more affection for their son than for Krishna, or affection like they have for Krishna. They were puzzled. And Balaram saw that going on, and he was puzzled, because by Krishna's arrangement, Yogamaya was preventing him from interfering with the fun, the happiness of exchanging love with the mothers and the cows, with their calves. From Narada Pancharatra, the infallible Lord can manifest his body in different ways according to different modes of worship, just as the Vaidurya gem can manifest itself in various colors, such as blue and yellow. Vaidurya gem is not just one color, according to, kind of like a chameleon looks sometimes like this and like that, different colors. There's a gem that takes on the appearance of different colors. So like a Vaidurya gem, Krishna can appear however he likes. According to the mode of the worshipper, he reciprocates. Sridhar Swami explains that all the forms are ekarasa, one, in his commentary as follows. They are all forms of the one Brahman, which is Satchit Ananda. Therefore, it will be said later chapter 40, Canto 10. Absorbing their minds in thought of you, they worship you as the one Supreme Lord manifesting in multiple forms. This is equivalent to a proof from Shruti, since Bhagavatam is part of the fifth Veda as a Purana with its statements concerning the Lord as Satya and Ananda. Now, all of that is a very tight statement of something that's explained at length in Tattva Sandarbha, but the short of it is, within the Shrutis, it says the Puranas are the fifth Veda. Not just, Vaishnava scholars like the Puranas. The Shrutis say the Puranas are the fifth Veda. Say it again. Scholars don't teach that. There's the four Vedas and everything else is something else. But the four Vedas, the Shrutis, say Puranas are the fifth Veda. Anyway, there's multiple verses like that. And therefore, what he's saying here is this reference from the Bhagavatam is as good as one of the four Vedas saying it, because it's the fifth Veda. Still honoring that some people, scholarly people, view the singular importance of the four Vedas, we're finding many references from the Upanishads, etc. In Canto 12, Chapter 13, the same idea is taught in the Bhagavatam. Quote, Srimad Bhagavatam is clear to be the essence of all Vedanta philosophy. One who has felt satisfaction from its sweet rasa will never be attracted to any other literature. Or Canto 1, Chapter 3. Vyasa had his son Shukadev, best of the self-controlled, study the scripture, which is the very essence of all the Vedas and histories. So, Puranas and Itihasas and all of the four Vedas. The essence is in Srimad Bhagavatam. Here's a verse from Svetashvatara Upanishad, a verse that Prabhupada quoted a lot. Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate natat samaschabhyadi kasya drishyate parasya shaktir vividai vashruyate swabhavaki jnana balakriyacha. Over and over he would quote, because it's important. Svetashvatara Upanishad, which says, Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. There's no cause and effect in the Lord. Natat samaschabhyadikasya drishyate. None is greater than him or equal to him. And parasya shaktir. His potencies are multifarious. He has innate knowledge, strength, and action. Swabhavaki jnana bala kriya cha. It arises from him, not from some other source. His knowledge, strength, and action. We're almost done. Just one more reference. The Lord exists previous to the emergence of the material world. That's known in the Vedas. So here's one. Aitariya Upanishad. Sa ikshata. He glanced at material nature. Sa aikshata. So material nature was there, but the creation from material nature didn't exist until his glance. And then, voila, creation came. So his form that did the glancing, and his form that does everything that's being described in the Damodara Lila, is an eternal form. And how can something material, once again, how can something material, like a rope, encompass something that's fully spiritual, or that which is fully spiritual has within it the universe. He showed that in the previous chapter. So what rope goes around the universe? So it's not doable. It's not doable. It's not doable. But Mother Jasoda does it. Because she's really powerful. And her power is her devotion. And he who is not controlled, Ishvara Parama Krishna, is controlled by Mother Jasoda. He's who the controller of all controllers is controlled by her. She's really powerful. Or it's one of the glories of Krishna that he's controlled by the love of his devotees. There's a very nice reference in the 9th canto of the Bhagavatam when Durvasa Muni offends Maharaj Ambarish. You know the pastime. He was proud. And he resented the fact that Maharaj Ambarish, who's a king, a Kshatriya, is honored more than me. That's not right. So his pride was irked. So he found a discrepancy. That is, on the Dwadasi day, after one whole year of observing Ekadasi Vrata, on the final Ekadasi Dwadasi, the next day after the last Ekadasi, it was time to break the fast. And just as he was about to break the fast, at the right time, Durvasa Muni came. And he honored Durvasa Muni appropriately and said, why don't you break the fast first? That would be a great honor. And Durvasa Muni said, sure. But before I break the fast, I have to perform my morning duties. But I'll be right back. And he wasn't back in time. And so Maharaj Ambarish was in anxiety. What to do? The Brahmanas said, we have a trick. You can not break the fast and break the fast. Brahmanas are tricky sometimes. So he took 3 drops of Charnamrita from the deity bathing from that morning to break the fast and not break the fast. But Durvasa Muni, having this connection with Super Soul, he knew. So when he came back, he was angry. Durvasa Muni was angry. And with mantra, he took one hair from his head and dashed it to the ground, decreed a fiery demon, pointed at Maharaj Ambarish, kill him. He broke the fast first. And the fiery demon went charging at Maharaj Ambarish. But Sudarshan Chakra stopped him. And since that fiery demon was launched by Durvasa Muni, Sudarshan Chakra started pursuing Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni was a mystic. He sped away, traveled by mystic power speed, went here and there. Finally, he ended up at the abode of Vishnu, saying, help. And Vishnu said, I can't help you. I'm not at all independent. I'm dependent upon my devotee. Now he's fully independent. He's fully independent. There isn't someone else that's fully independent. But with the fullness of his independence, he placed it at the disposal of his devotee, Maharaj Ambarish. We have to go to Maharaj Ambarish. And if he forgives you, then Sudarshan will stop. But you don't ask me, ask him. Because I'm not independent. He's independent. But he places himself, this is the nature of the Supreme Lord. He places himself at the disposal of his devotee. In this case, Maharaj Ambarish, or in the Damodara Lila, Mother Jasoda. He who cannot be bound was bound. He who cannot be caught from behind was caught from behind. He who cannot be known became known. That's the power. So the teaching is it's the power of bhakti, and it's the nature of the Supreme Lord. And he's enjoying the love of his devotee and being controlled by the love of his devotee. He likes. So it's not everybody. Not everybody has that kind of love. And so it's not the goal is to try to become the controller of the controller of everyone. The controller of Ishwara Parama. That's not the idea. The idea is to become so submissive and devoted and wanting to see the pleasure of, that's the essence, the heart of bhakti. Then seeing that, Krishna agrees to be accessible to such a devotee. That's the teaching. And that's the spirit of this whole Damodar month. Okay, so let's see if there's some discussion. We still have a little bit more to go with the commentary. Radha was complaining a little bit. Not complaining, but wondering, the pastime is so sweet. Why all this philosophy in the middle? Like you're eating a rasgulla and then all of a sudden there's some sawdust. What's the sawdust doing in a rasgulla? Okay, Radha has something. Okay, you're on.
How can Krishna feel anything because he's God? And
How can Krishna realize that he's God?
no, feel anything.
Feel anything?
Yeah.
How can he not feel anything? He can feel anything because he's God. Let's say it negatively. Is there something that he can't do? If there is something he can't do, that he's not God. If you can feel something, why Krishna can't feel something? Where does your ability to feel something come from? From the source of everything.
I have another question.
Okay. I have a comment. I was sharing with Nityananda Pran yesterday your enthusiasm to ask questions. And he chuckled. He said, when he gives his class, you're always asking questions too. And I was sharing with him that I'm helping you to get over saying, And he said, I also tease her about why. Because all of her questions begin, why? So he's not, just, like me, it's affection. It's not discouragement, it's affection. Ask, your questions are lovely. This isn't affection exchange, take it that way. Okay?
Right.
Second question.
I think I already asked this, but I still haven't, understood my answer.
Try it again. Try it again.
So my question is, can God make somebody else God and make him not be God and that person be God?
Yeah, Mother Yasoda. But God in the sense of controller, not God in the sense of the source of everything. Because there's only one source of everything. That's a given. It doesn't change. There's only one source of everything.
But then if he can do that,
Then he's not God if he can't do that. So he can expand himself, and other things that he expands, they can expand themselves. But it's a Vedanta definition. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Janmad Yasya Yataha. That which is the source of everything, that's the absolute truth, and that absolute truth is one. So your question is, why not have two? Because the absolute truth is one.
what I'm saying, there's going to be only one, but can he make him not God?
Yes, he expands himself, no problem. Wait till she goes to college. Look out. Stand aside. Here comes Radha. Can he make himself not God? Well, he performs pastimes where he's not, but he is. He's controlled, although he's the controller of all, he transfers that control that he has to others and becomes controlled by them. Thus, in Lila, not God, but still God. It's Lila. Okay, enough of your questions.
Hare Krishna Maharaj ji. My question is, love is the most powerful emotion in Bhakti Yoga. So what is love?
Well, that's your definition, but therefore, what's love? Bhakti does not exactly mean love. Bhakti means Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam, using our senses in the service of the master of the senses. That's a Narada Pancharatra definition. Bhakti is using the senses in service of the master of the senses. A couple of classes ago, I think you were there for that one. Prabhupada will remember if you was there for that one. The description of, there's another definition of bhakti that's provided by Rupa Goswami, where anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. We spent all this time discussing what anukulya means. And anukulya means pleasing to. But it means more than that. Pleasing to Krishna. Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. Shila means behavior or conduct or activity. So activity that's pleasing to Krishna. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. That's a definition of bhakti. So what your question is, what's bhakti? Not what your question was, what's love, but it's bhakti. Bhakti is service where there's no, very cleverly and very carefully, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, it's not having an inimical attitude towards. Because, for example, when Krishna's fighting with Chanura and Mushtika, the wrestlers, Krishna and Balaram, he's deriving happiness. But they're not bhaktas because they have malice. So bhakti means without the intention of doing some hurtful or bad thing to Krishna, engaging all your activities for his satisfaction. That's what bhakti is. So, and it's practical. This is another part of the definition. It's senses contacting sense objects. Because impersonalists are afraid you bring senses in contact with sense objects and you're going to have a problem. So they try to withdraw their senses from sense objects. Yogis do, Gyanis do, and Vaishnavas extend their senses for the pleasure of Krishna. That's bhakti. Rishikena Rishikesha. The senses engaged in sevanam, service to the master of the senses. So bhakti is service. It's practical activity. Therefore, bhakti by scholars is often translated as devotion, which is like a feeling. Prabhupada translated as devotional service because it's activity, not just a feeling of love. It's an activity practical, senses and sense objects, activity, for the pleasure of the source of the senses and sense object, the source of everything. Service, practical service in relation to the source of everything, in a favorable mood. That's bhakti. And in the mature stage, it becomes love. In the immature stage, it's just practice. Like wearing your mask. Where's your mask? You forgot? You left it home? I think your mother has an extra. Let's see. She's the reservoir of masks. Okay. Anything else? Yes?
You mentioned Atmajnani. So one who know about the soul called Atmajnani.
Yes.
So what kind of qualities they have?
Very nice question. And there's a verse in Bhagavad Gita that gives directly the answer. And I forget the text number. The verse is Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. Atulya, find out the verse number. 18.55. Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. So first symptom, Prasanatma. Happy within the soul. Next, na sochati, na kangsati. No, they're neither hankering nor lamenting for things material, because they're happy inside. No happiness looking outside. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu. Sama means equal vision. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu, seeing all living entities equally on the spiritual platform. I mean, there's material differences between living entities, but the spiritual seeing equally is the soul within, seeing within the soul. Then the final quality or characteristic is madbhaktim labhate. Labha means to obtain or attain. They attain the stage of, they're at the cusp of attaining bhakti. Those are 4 symptoms of the Atmajnani, Brahmabhuta. Okay? How about over on this side? Yes? No?
So, first of all, Bharat in work.
Yes.
How do we keep
Krishna.
about
Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. That's how you get Vishnu Smaranam. Through the doorway is Shravanam Kirtanam. Then you get into the Vishnu Smaranam part. When you're attached to someone or something, your thoughts go to that someone or something. Someone that you love, or that's, even something that you love. Someone's a drug addict. They're thinking of that something they're attached to. What you're attached to is where the mind goes. So how to get to the point where you're attached, and that's where your mind is going to go. An obstacle is we're strongly attached to the temporary. Asat, Trishna. We're thirst for the impermanent. We're very conditioned to that. That's an obstacle. Even when you're doing Shravanam Kirtanam or hearing and chanting, the mind is distracted by the temporary, the conditioning tendencies. Nonetheless, by continuous striving to connect with the place of shelter, Sharanagati, then the hearing and chanting becomes more effective. That is, the cleansing on the one side and the building an attachment on the other side. And then your thought is with that which you've been hearing and chanting instead of the temporary. Now, in practical activity, you're engaged with the temporary. You're going to work and thising and thatting. While engaged in thising and thatting, the mind is with Krishna. Read Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 1. And you'll find, Krishna saying that he's going to explain how to do what you're asking. Chapter 7 is a how-to answer to that question. Maya sakta, asakti means attachment. Maya asakti, manaha, with mind attached to me. Yogam yunjan mad ashraya, take shelter of me, or one who has taken shelter of Krishna. By the association of such persons, the practice of hearing and chanting results in attachment to Krishna. Asamshayam samagramam. And by that method, Krishna becomes revealed, without a doubt. Asamshaya. It's a nice verse, and the chapter is a nice chapter because it's responding. Touch Trinu, hear from me how all of this. So read chapter 7, you get a more comprehensive answer. Okay. Anything here? Okay, let's get the microphone over here.
A lot of videos about Kartik Parikrama. So what is the significance of doing Parikrama?
Kartik month is an auspicious month, like Ekadasi is an auspicious day, or appearance days of Vishnu are auspicious days. The Kartik month is an auspicious month. And Scripture says, specifically, what you just described, visiting the places of Krishna's pastimes during the Kartik month, it's auspicious in any case, and it's especially auspicious during the Kartik month. And so it's very much appreciated to visit the places of Krishna's pastimes during the auspicious Kartik month. It's, double, triple, quadruple auspicious. And that auspiciousness is not the material kind of auspicious, like, that brings wealth and material piety and so forth. It's spiritual sukriti. And for that reason, because scriptures advocate during this auspicious month, this is something special to do.
I was thinking about this verse. So, the entry point for understanding Krishna is really Krishna's mercy. We cannot do much except for just awaiting that Krishna's mercy to come. Because the understanding is just based on when Krishna reveals himself.
I disagree.
Okay.
We can do lots, but it's insufficient. We should do lots, but it's insufficient. Now, Krishna can bestow his mercy even upon, somebody that doesn't do anything. His mercy is independent. But there's lots of things we can do to prepare ourselves to invite that mercy from Krishna, and when it comes, to have our receiver on. So that's what we can do. I'm just not so comfortable with the preamble of your question.
But we have been hearing again and again that Krishna's revelation and disclosure is in Krishna's hands.
Yes, it is.
And Krishna is supremely independent of Swarat.
That's right.
So therefore, no matter what we do, ultimately, it's Krishna's mercy will come on Krishna's terms whenever he chooses to give mercy.
While that's true, it doesn't mean don't do anything, because it's in Krishna's hand anyways. It's possible to get an honorary degree from Oxford University. It's in their hand to give a degree or not, but that's not the general procedure. You just hope for a honorary degree from Oxford University. There's another procedure.
Online questions?
Yeah.
First question is from Radha's friend Arna. Hare Krishna Maharaj, Brahma is a great devotee. Then how did he forget who is Krishna when he was stealing the cows and the cowherd boys?
Krishna's arranged because he wanted to perform a pastime. Similar to Arjuna's forgetting because Krishna wanted to perform a pastime. Not the same, but it's similar.
Next question is from Sridhar Prabhu. Hare Krishna. If Lord birth and activities are so liberating, why rishis who are jnanis always relied on tough path of tapasya?
Why do they rely on the tough part of tapasya?
Path.
Path. Like saying your name. Pata or Partha? Okay. The tapasvis are not inclined to surrender. They're inclined in the doership mentality. So they're given something. And even for them, it's dependent upon Krishna's mercy. But they're given something that helps elevate them and make them more qualified for Krishna's mercy. But it still depends on Krishna's mercy. So the reasonable position is what you said. Why don't they just take shelter of Krishna's mercy? Because they're inclined some other way. He doesn't interfere. He assists them in what they're inclined towards. Okay? Anything online? Or we're good? Anything else in the room? How about back in the back row back there? Anything? Okay. Vishaka? Anything? Okay. Srila Prabhupada, keep. Good.